Hi, welcome to Cork Meets Fork. I'm Robert Mitchell, and this is our first installment, or match number one. I've always said to all of my wine customers and people that I've come across that are into wine that every time I taste a wine, I'm always thinking about the food. I'm always thinking about what this wine should pair with. And my opinion is that wine should always go with food. Wine by itself is sometimes okay. It can be a wine cocktail, but for the most part, it belongs with food. And that's the whole theme of our program, Cork Meets Fork. And what you're going to see here, we're going to talk about today our match number one, Piedmont versus Asia. We're going to try some Asian short ribs, match this up with some Nebbiolo from Piedmont up in northern Italy. And we're going to learn a little bit about that area and also learn how to cook this food that we're preparing today. You can also go to corkmeetsfork.com and find out what we're doing in southeastern Wisconsin for some of our tasting events. But welcome to match number one. Up in Piedmont, it's the northwestern corner of Italy. And you've got Milan up that way. You've got Torino, where the Olympics were held about, 7 years ago, Mac? And you've got mountains, and it comes down to almost like a desert area, very dry, clay-like soil with marl, which is a combination of clay and sand, and quite a bit of sand too, but it's also a very dry area. They don't get a whole lot of rainfall a year. So the grapes are really kind of working, and they tend to be more on the dry side and just really kind of spicy. There's a robustness to them. There's some tannins to these wines because of that soil and because of the climate, which is very hot during the summer days, and it cools down at night. A couple of other things to go over. In Italy, you have wine laws and restrictions, and wines that get a certain label, DOC, DOCG. DOC is basically Denominazione di Origine Controllata, or it's basically they're controlling the origin of where the wine comes from. And then you've got the higher level, which is also has guaranteed on it, or granitita is what that's called. And that's guaranteed, so it's guaranteed that it's from that area. There's only 37 wines in Italy that actually have that designation of a DOCG, and there's over 300 that have the DOC. So to be a DOCG, it's very rare, and we actually have one wine today that is a DOCG. We're going to start off with this Barbera that we're going to have you try and give this a whirl. This is from the town of Alba, so it's called the Barbera di Alba, and this is from Moro Molino. Barbera is a grape varietal that is kind of like an everyday drinking wine for the Italians up in Piedmont. Just very soft, very easy. We had a wine dinner on Friday night at Sassy Bee in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and we actually paired this with an heirloom tomato and a golden beet salad. It was fantastic, but the brightness of this fruit just really works well for that. Just a lot of cherry, a lot of bright fruit coming out of the glass. Careful when you swirl so you don't get it all over your shirt. Just super bright, not too dry in the finish, like our next two wines are gonna be. It's just clean, simple, a nice everyday wine. Also a wine that you can pair up with tuna, possibly swordfish, and even a salmon dish. It's kind of like Pinot Noir that pairs really well with salmon. But a really, really nice, easy drinking wine. And this wine is available on our website here. You can purchase this today. Now we're going to the Nebbiolo grape, and this next wine is a Vigna di Tavola, which is a table wine. We don't see a lot of these in the United States. A lot of them stay in parts of Italy, and in this case in Piedmont. Here we're trying a wine from Albino Rocca, and this is his Rosso da Rocca. Just a really, really nice wine, because Nebbiolo tends to be an expensive grape varietal. You'll get that in your Barolos and your Barbarescos, which we're going to try later, and they can be between $60 and $170 a bottle. Here you've got a really, really nice, affordable wine. It's a blend of Barbera, about 10%. There's a little Cabernet Franc, taken from the French, and you've got 80% Nebbiolo in this wine. Now we're getting that spice. We're getting that Nebbiolo spice. That spice aroma, almost a little cigar box. A little bit of like a cake mix, cake spice, and that real bright cherry that's coming through too. And then in the mouth, it's got that real typical Nebbiolo dry finish to it, which is just fantastic. And this wine will work with the short ribs, which we're going to bring out later, because of all the spices in the short ribs and the spices in this wine. But a great little affordable entry-level wine from Piedmont. The grapes here are actually grown right in and around Barbaresco, which is kind of unique. Most of the inexpensive Nebbiolos come from Longhi, which it does not have the designation that Barbaresco has. Finally, we're going to the Albino Rocca Barbaresco. Barbaresco is about 2 miles away from Barolo, another town where very high-end wines come from Piedmont, and they call this the wine of kings and the king of wines, Barolo. Barbaresco is kind of like its little baby brother, but these wines are actually tend to be bigger because Barbaresco is a little bit lower, so you don't get those cool of nights. Barolo, the town of Barolo, and the vineyards around Barolo tends to be about 150 feet higher in elevation. In Barbaresco, you're a little bit lower, so you're getting more of that intense heat, and the grapes tend to be a little bit jammier, a little fruitier and bigger. What I love about Barbarescos and Barolos is that spicy quality. You just get this really, really nice spice. That's where it's working with that Asian pear where you have sweet, sour, spicy. You've got a little salty from the soy sauce in that dish too, and you just smell that. I mean, the first time I smelled the Nebbiolo, I was just thinking, God, I want something Chinese. Now we've advanced to getting a little more creative with the Asian spices. That cinnamon is coming back again. I'm getting a little bit of like tea leaves. Great color too. You're always going to notice in a Nebbiolo that you get this little brown kind of hue, this brown edginess to the wine, this crimson color with these brown edges, which is perfect. Great fruit. Great fruit up front. Almost a little fruitier than your typical Nebbiolo too, where you've got almost like a little candied kind of cherry, almost like a Luden's cough drop that's coming through, and then this absolutely bone dry finish. So this little bright fruit that comes up forward just kind of disappears, and it's just absolutely wonderful. This is our main pair that's going to come up with the Asian short ribs, and stick around a little bit. We're going to show you how to cook that. But let's taste this together. Our first food match with Piedmont Meets Asia here on corkmeetsfork.com. Very, very simple. We're gonna rush through this pretty quickly so you can see how this is done, what's going into this Asian short rib dish, and hopefully you get the idea. You'll be able to download the recipe afterward. But the sauce is very, very simple. What we're doing is we're incorporating a little bit of fish sauce. You're just putting in a tablespoon of that. You're adding also a little bit of this rice vinegar. The key ingredients are a little hoisin, soy sauce, about a cup of chicken stock, and then to get the spicy with the sweet, the sour, and the salty, we're adding a little bit of Thai chili paste to the sauce. That's all going into the slow cooker. What we're going to do is we're going to cook this for about 8 hours once we add the vegetables and the meat. And the slow cooker is going to do all the work for you. As far as the vegetables go, some carrots, some celery, onion, garlic, and ginger. And you want to use the fresh ginger here. And what we're going to do with these vegetables too is you can cut these up in big chunks. It's not going to be like a diced dish, so it's not going to take a lot of time for you. And we want to do about inch chunks on those pieces of all the vegetables that are going into the dish. Now, as for the short ribs themselves, there's different short rib cuts that you're going to get from the grocer or the butcher shop. Occasionally you'll see these short ribs cut in almost like thin like steaks. We don't want that. We want the whole short rib. And as you can see, the short rib has different cuts. You want to go right along the side of the meat there. And I'm going to show you exactly how to cut that. Leave the fat on, because the fat will all get reduced in the slow cooking process. And that's where all the flavor is going to come from. We're going to show you how to get rid of that fat later. There's a good looking short rib right there. You've got the bone on the back side, You've got the cuts of fat in the meat, and when you're done with this dish, after it cooks for 8 hours, the meat is going to shrink around the bone, and you're going to have this beautiful looking chop, this beautiful bone with the meat. Good. Now the plating part. We did also do a truffled mashed potato using an Idaho potato, which is going to be a little bit less waxy than, let's say, a red bliss or one of the waxier potatoes. And then with a little truffle oil or a hint of truffle spray or some black truffle butter is also a good way to go. That's the short rib. It's just going to be fall apart tender. We're going to finish that off with a little bit of sauce. Get a little sauce going down there. And then the broccoli rabe or the rapini. This is just blanched first so it retains that real bright green color. Look at how green that is. It was blanched first, then sauteed in a little bit of very thinly sliced garlic, a little bit of olive oil, a little plate wipe, and voila, Asian braised short ribs. Asian short rib, little broccoli rabe with some garlic and olive oil. Got some truffles in the mashed potatoes, and truffles are just a key ingredient in all Piedmontese food. Truffles can be found up in Piedmont. And then we have this sauce, this Asian sauce that we reduced and cooked down to this just beautiful succulent sauce. Look how tender that is. It just absolutely falls apart. And you're getting all those spices. All the spices that you're tasting in the wine, those food spices, those cooking spices you're tasting in that dish. A little sweet, a little sour, a little salty, a little hot from that Thai chili paste, and just wonderful. And also the sides were put together to match with this too. You've got garlic and very bitter with the broccoli rabe. Bitterness is there. Add salt to the broccoli rabe to take care of some of that bitterness, but it's a wonderful little flavor. And then the truffles, one of my favorite things in the world. But I have to try this with the wine, because this is why we're here. Who would have thought? Asia and Piedmont, long distance away. Some people say that food has to come from that area, and I think you see that a lot in Tuscany and some places in France, but you've got some great white wine producers that create these real crisp white wines, and they go with shellfish, which is miles and miles away. We've got that same type of thing here with that Asian meets Piedmont, or Piedmont meets Asia. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you for match number 2.